Hello, I'm Andrew Bryan, and welcome to Drumming Basics. The music that you're hearing in the background is my uncle Art Taylor, together with a trumpet player named Dizzy Reese. And they were jamming in my music studio back in 1980 in Midtown Manhattan on 53rd Street and Broadway. And I had those guys down there, and they were having a lot of fun, as you can hear, doing a little bit of practicing. My uncle had just returned from living in Europe for 16 or 17 years. And, I invited him to my studio so he could get a little bit warm with his drums. And there we had some drum duos going on and had a lot of fun together. So I thought I would open up this video with letting you hear him, because he was a very famous drummer and I learned a lot from him. Another drummer whom I learned a lot from, named Tony Williams, taught me the hand technique that I'm going to show you right now. And what I learned from Tony is that if you have a good hand technique and you have a good concentration between your thinking and what you're doing in your hands together, then when you go to the drums, you'll be able to play really well. And he proved that to me, because after studying with him for many years and doing what he said, I started to really get together with the drums in a way I never did before, although I have been playing the drums since I was 11 years old. And I started studying with Tony when I was 21, okay? So, the hand technique is really important, and the main thing that we want to concentrate on is lifting the sticks, okay? Because instead of thinking about hitting the drum like that, it's better to think about lifting the stick, because then we have a balance when we hit the drum, and that balance causes the wave and the sound and the texture of the drum to come out of the drum like that. And we hear the drum in its natural timbre and not with a distortion of just being hit like that, but rather with the tone and quality that the drum itself possesses as an instrument. So this philosophy is really important, of lifting rather than hitting. In other words, lifting becomes more important than hitting. So when we're lifting the sticks like that, that causes us to have a stroke going on, which is how high we lift the stick and when the stick comes back down on the drum, okay? And this stroke causes a certain energy for us to feel in our hands, because we're not using our arms to lift the sticks, we're using our hands. If we use our arms, we're going to miss out on this wonderful contact between our actual hands and our brain, and the signals that our brain sends to control these sticks. And if we can control the sticks with our hands instead of with our arms, we've really reduced a whole lot of movement that's unnecessary. And we've also created a certain balance in the body. So in the next example, I'd like to show you some rudiments. And rudiments are basically drum exercises which have different rhythmic qualities to them, which we play in succession after playing them individually, which help us to understand rhythm, which help us to control our hands, and which help us to lift the sticks and to feel the weight of the sticks in our hands, okay? So here we go. So that was an example of what it looks like playing through some strokes, okay? I started out on the right side and ended up on the right side. And I'm explaining that to you now because when we do these exercises, our plan is to do them perfectly, or as close to perfect as possible, as a discipline, as an exercise, okay? And this exercise will help you to control your sticking technique using your brain and starting on a certain side and ending on a certain side. This brings an enormous amount of control and spontaneity to drum playing. If you're playing with other musicians and you feel something spontaneously and you want to play it and you never thought about it before, but go for it with having a good hand technique and practicing rudiments and flams and paradiddles together, you will find that you can almost execute any movement necessary because you would have trained your brain and your hands to work together. That extends also just through working with your hands into your feet, okay? So it's a whole system. So what I'm trying to tell you is that there is a system and method of playing the drums, okay? And exercises are extremely helpful to get the movements together, because the movements and how you make the movements are responsible for how well you can play and master the drums, okay? Also, studying rhythms and reading drum music is also essential for every good drummer to do. In today's contemporary music, the drums are responsible for holding songs together and keeping the other instruments in place by setting a groove or a platform for them to play on, okay? So you are really, as a drummer, in a position of destroying a song or making a song sound really good. And simple playing happens to work the most effective in popular music today, okay? In other words, beats that normally repeat themselves but are played consistently and also with a certain knowledge of how rhythm functions. So that's another thing that we will be studying, is playing ahead or behind the beat and how the differences of the feel goes when you're playing ahead of a beat or when you're playing behind the beat, okay? So in other words, if this is the middle, you can play a little bit behind the beat or you can play a little bit ahead of the beat, and that will change the flow of the music. Brazilian music specifically is known for this quality of where some of the rhythms are played a little bit ahead of the beat while others are played behind the beat. And this produces such a variety of feeling and pulse in the music that it's unbelievable, okay? And this is complicated to do, but if you understand basic rhythm, then it becomes easier, okay? So I think that these are just some of the things that I would like to teach you when you come here. And studying the drums is not something that happens overnight, because learning, like I said, the hand technique, that's the most fundamental part of drumming. And learning rhythms also, it takes time for the body to memorize the movements, okay? Because that's what we're trying to do with any instrument, is to have muscle memory. And muscle memory means to be able to memorize movements that have to do with patterns, okay? Or that have to do with theoretical rhythms or theoretical musical ideas or concepts, okay? So if we have all these things together from the beginning, it's going to be much easier later to play a different variety or style of music without much problem, because you would have already had the fundamental groundwork already laid out for you so that you can comprehend and take and give in any musical situation as a drummer. And I think that that's one of the most important qualities of being a good drummer, is to be able to give and to take. in the musical situation.